So today's main topic is TypeScript. Before entering into Angular, first we must know the TypeScript language. So what is TypeScript? TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. That means all the concepts of JavaScript are as it is available in TypeScript, but additionally TypeScript provides some extra features or advanced features which are not there in JavaScript. What are they? TypeScript provides all the concepts of JavaScript plus classes plus interfaces plus modules, some other minor features. And mainly the classes, interfaces, modules, these concepts are required in Angular. So that is the reason Angular was developed based on TypeScript, not based on JavaScript. Of course, TypeScript is developed based on JavaScript because TypeScript is superset of JavaScript. And in order to work with the TypeScript, we have to follow some steps. Now let us see steps to prepare first application in TypeScript. The first one, first we have to download and install Node.js. Next we have to install TypeScript. Next we have to create TypeScript program. Next we have to compile the TypeScript program. Then we have to execute the TypeScript program. These are the steps that we have to follow. The reason why we are learning TypeScript exactly is Angular works based on TypeScript only. So it is a must knowledge. Before entering into Angular, you must know the TypeScript language compulsory. So as you may don't know about TypeScript language, I am covering the TypeScript essential topics for you. After completion of the TypeScript essential topics, then we are going to enter into actual Angular. So these are the 5 steps that we have to follow for preparation of the first application in TypeScript. First, what is Node.js? Node.js is a server-side platform to create server-side web applications. Web application contains 2 types of programs, client-side program, server-side program. The client-side program executes on the browser and can interact with the server-side program. And the server-side program runs on the server, can receive request from browser and can send response to browser. Whenever a program that is running on the server having ability to receive the request from browser can provide the response to browser, that is called server-side program. To create the server-side program, already we have several server-side platforms. One of the server-side platform is Node.js. So Node.js is alternative to Java, .NET or PHP or Python. So using Node.js also we are able to create server-side programs much like you have done in Java, .NET or PHP or Python. Node.js is easy and developer friendly. But in our lessons we are not going to write any programs in Node.js. The reason why we have explained about Node.js here is we are trying to install a software called Node.js. Just you may have a doubt, okay, what is Node.js and all these things. Just for clarity purpose, I have explained about this. Even we are not writing any code in Node.js in the entire codes. Node.js is a separate codes and the Node.js knowledge is not required for Angular. Without learning Node.js also, we are able to learn Angular and you are able to work with this. See, some projects are like Angular plus Java, Angular plus .NET, Angular plus PHP, Angular plus Python. Like that, one of the choices is Angular plus Node.js. So there is no restriction of compulsory we have to learn and use Node.js while working in Angular. Angular is fundamentally client side, Node.js is server side. We have to download and install the Node.js. Let me uninstall my Node.js software because earlier I have installed Node.js in my system. That's why first I'm uninstalling it. In your system, you need not do this because it may be some fresh system. Already Node.js may not be there. So in my system, as Node.js already installed, I'm just uninstalling it first. So the website for Node.js is nodejs.org, https nodejs.org. From this website, you can download the Node.js software. In case if you want to try for other operating systems, you can click on other downloads, and you can see it is supported on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So as we are trying to use currently Windows, I just click on the current option 10.8.0 current. Now we are going to install it newly. Click on the current version 10.8.0. We are downloading a file called node 10.8.0 x64.msi. Double click on the file to install and click on next. Select the checkbox I accept the terms in the license agreement. Click on next. Click on next. And then by default some options are displaying. No need of changing anything. Just keep the options as it is. Click on next and click on install. Installation completed. Now after installing Node.js, what we have to do, open our command prompt window. We have to enter one command saying that npm install TypeScript-g. We are going to install a package called TypeScript package globally. Globally means in the entire system, in all the folders, the package will be available. Whenever we have installed a package globally, that particular package files are available globally in the entire system in all the folders. Here installing means downloading the packages and keeping them in the particular location in the local machine. So from the npm server, it will download this package and keep it in our local machine. Here the name of the package is TypeScript. So when we install this package, the TypeScript language, the corresponding compiler automatically available on your machine. That means you will be able to use the TypeScript in your machine. Now, how do we practice the TypeScript programs? To write the TypeScript program, you require to use some code editor, that is Visual Studio Code. I think already you know how to install Visual Studio Code. In case if you don't have Visual Studio Code, we can download it from this code.visualstudio.com. From this website you can download and install it. I think you have it already. So after downloading and installing Visual Studio Code, what we have to do, how to create the program, let's try to identify. So go to Visual Studio Code, go to File menu, New File. We are going to save it. The location is as this is the first program in TypeScript, we are going to place first.ts. The file name first.ts. We are going to save it in C:\TypeScript location. The file name is first.ts. File extension must be .ts. File extension .ts. File name can be anything. File extension must be .ts. So in the first.ts, we can write our actual TypeScript program. Now we are going to understand a topic called classes. Let's understand what is class in TypeScript. A class is a model of objects. Class specifies what properties and methods that you want to store inside an object. For example, we have a student object. In the student object, what properties and methods you would like to have, we can specify by using classes. The class specifies model. The class acts as a model of the objects. The class contains the list of properties and methods that are to be stored inside the object. Notice class will not store the list of properties and methods, but class just specifies what properties and methods really to be stored inside an object. So which will store the actual properties and methods in object. Class is just telling, okay, these properties and these methods must be there in the object. For example, the student class specifies that student ID, student name, marks are the properties that are to be stored in every student object. And it also specifies get result method should be stored in every student object. So the student object contains student ID, student name, marks, get result, These are the properties and methods that should be stored in every student object. So this is specified by the student class. The look and feel of the class is like this: class followed by class name. Here the keyword class says that we are going to create a class. And here we have to give actual class name. The class name can be anything, for example, student. Then class begins, class ends. Inside the class, we can create the properties and methods. We can create any number of properties, any number of methods. So what is a property? Property is a variable that is stored inside the object. The properties are stored inside the object. Property specifies, properties are the details about the object. For example, if you are an object, your details, your name, your email, your phone number, your date of birth, these are your details, nothing but your properties. If your mobile is an object, your mobile brand, your mobile size, your mobile processor, your mobile price, all these are about your mobile properties. So in short, details are nothing but properties. Technically, property is a variable that is stored inside the object. In order to create a property, we have to follow the syntax: property name followed by colon data type equal to some default value, if any. Property name can be anything, for example, X. Data type can be anything, for example, number. Value can be anything, for example, 10. So just an example, X is a property, number is a data type, 10 is a value. So let's write some properties here. For example, class name student. Here student ID is a property, number is a value. For example, 101 is a value. Student name is a property, string is a data type, Scott is a default value. Marks is a property, number is a data type, 80 is a value. Is registered is a property, Boolean is a data type, true or false is a value. So like this we can create any number of properties. Next, let's understand the topic of methods. Method is a function that is stored inside the object. Variable stored inside the object is property. Function stored inside the object is method. Methods are the operations or tasks that can be performed based on the object. Based on the object, what are the operations or process that you want to perform, all those are called methods. Syntax is, first we have to provide the method name is equal to, here we have to provide some code, any code here, then we have to close the brace. Here we can receive some parameters, parameter 1, parameter 2, any number of parameters. First we have to specify the name of the method, with which name you want to create a method, such a name. The method name can be anything, for example, get data, do process, calculate, this type of names, meaningful names. Any kind of tasks are exactly the methods. For example, I'm just asking you that, just I want to square the n value, square the 5. You want to square the number 5. Square means 5 into 5. So what will you do? First you are receiving my input, that is 5. Then you are calculating just 5 into 5. Then answer you found just 25. Then you speak out 25. So first you are receiving something, doing the process, providing the result. So that is an example of a method. Here get square is the name of the suitable method, and it is receiving a parameter called n value, and in the actual code it is just multiplying it, n into n, and also return the value. Like that you can create any number of methods. For example, based on this marks you want to provide the result. So you want to write a method called get result. We can write the get result method in two ways. In simple ways we can do like this. I mean just method name with brackets. We can do like this. Or we can also write equal to brackets equal to greater than. Equal to greater than is also called as arrow. arrow. In arrow method format also we can write, or we can also write shortcut syntax. This is the shortcut syntax of writing the method. This is arrow syntax. But however, in real time, arrow functions are recommended. The reason, even though we are calling this method asynchronously by using set interval or set timeout, or by using any events like click event, double click event, also that this keyword will not be disturbed. This keyword always refers to the current object. Because the reason, if it is a normal function like this, normal method like this, there is a possibility of changing this value, this keyword value, if you call the method through set interval or set timeout or click event. To overcome that problem, exactly we have to prefer using arrow function. So as of now, we are not using any set timeout or click or anything. That's why as of now, simple method syntax like this or with arrow function syntax like this, both are equal as of now. So now the actual code is, to represent current object, we have to use this dot. Name of the method is, name of the property is marks. If it is less than 35, if it is greater than or equal to 35, then we have to return pass, otherwise fail. We have to check whether it is pass or fail. Here, these are the properties to store the value. This is the method to perform calculation. So we have understood what is class, what is property, what is method. Object. Object is physical item. Something that exists physically, that is called object. For example, a student, a book, or a pen, or something. Something that exists physically, that is called object. Private, public will be covered later, Deepak. So object is a physical item that exists, something that exists physically, that is called an object. For example, you are an object, your friend is an object, your mobile is an object, your building is an object, your city is an object, this earth is an object. So anything, it may be smallest or biggest, anything that exists physically is called as an object. So objects can be created in two ways. One is based on class or without class. Based on class we can create object, or without class also we can create. If you want to create an object based on class, we have to follow new class name. We have to follow the syntax of new. The new keyword will create an object. Then we have to provide the name of the class. And then we have to keep the brackets. So this is one of the ways to create object based on the class. In this case, what the main point here, if you create an object based on the class, automatically all the members of the class, what are the properties declared, what are the methods declared in the object, will be automatically added to the object. What are the properties, methods added to the class will be automatically added to the object. So that's what the point. Whenever we have created an object based on the class, all the properties and methods of that class will be added to the object. Understand? So there is a class. It has some 5 properties, 5 methods, assume that. Then you have created an object for the class. That means you created object based on the class. All the corresponding 5 properties, 5 methods of the particular class will be added to the object. So as the object is declared based on the class, all the properties and methods of the particular class will be added to the object. It is just like creating object based on the predefined template or a predefined model. But without the class means we have to follow the object literal syntax, that is brace open and brace close. This is another way to create object. So whenever we have created an object without class, that means by using this syntax, by default object is empty, but we can add any properties, methods to the object. This time the object is like a free bird. The object can have any number of properties, any number of methods, whatever it wish. In the previous case, object cannot add additional properties, additional methods since it was created based on a class. Suppose an object wants to have some extra property, extra method, or it may don't want in a particular method or particular property it wants to remove. So removing properties, methods or adding is not possible in this case of first one. But in this case of second, without class, object is by default independent and by default empty. We can add any number of properties and any number of methods at any point of time, not only at the beginning of the program. So independent, if you want independent objects, we have to follow the second approach, that is without class. If you want to follow repeated format for all the objects, for example, you want to have thousands of student objects, all the thousands of student objects should have same properties, same methods. At that time, you have to follow the first approach, that is based on the class. Okay, now, so let me show how to create object based on the class. I mean this one, new class name syntax. Here, new student, again new student, again new student. We can create any number of objects like this, as many as you wish. Suppose in a college, 1000 students exist, so you can create 1000 objects. If you want to print it, we have to use console.log. Console.log is the output statement which is used to print something on the screen. Now, if you want to compile this particular program, go to the folder cd, that folder C: TypeScript. Now we can notice in C: TypeScript folder only our actual programs are present. I mean this first.ts file. How to compile this? We have to compile it by giving tsc first.ts. So this program will just compile it and automatically will generate first.js file. So as the ts file cannot execute directly, we must compile it compulsory into JavaScript. When we compile the JavaScript file, when we compile the TS file into JavaScript file, you can just see the code of the JS file like this. The class will be equal to a constructor function. Okay, a class is equal to a constructor function in JavaScript. Anyway, if you don't know about constructor function in JavaScript, leave it. Now I want to execute this. In order to execute this program easily, we have to provide the command node file name first.js. By providing first.js, we are able to get the output. Now we can see three objects are printed. The first object contains the property student ID, student name, marks is registered false, and get result method. This is second object and third object. You can create any number of objects like this. Without the class also we can create objects. I mean to say, for example, we can just create console.log just with braces, that's all. Yes, the brace is nothing but an object. So if you just compile this and run this again, see every time when you make the modification to compile the program tsc first.ts, to execute the program first.node first.js. Now we can see an object is printed in the last case. It is just an empty object, it has nothing. We can add any number of properties and methods to it. For example, x equal to 10, y equal to 20, we can add any number of properties. So compile and run this. First tsc first.ts, next node first.js to execute this. Now you can see an object which is 100% independent. It don't follow any predefined model or something. It don't follow any class. So it can have any number of properties, methods, whatever it wish. But the drawback is we cannot identify what properties and methods exist in this object at which time. Because in future also we can add the extra properties, extra methods to the same object. So nobody will to guess what properties, what methods does it contain. Even the code editors also. But in case of classes, there is no such a problem, as a class clearly describes, okay, these many properties, these many methods exist. So the code editors like Visual Studio Code now can identify exactly, okay, these many properties, these many methods exist. Exactly, it can show to you. So that is the benefit of going for classes. Now let us understand data types. TypeScript supports three properties, three data types. Number. So number, all numbers are represented as number data types, maybe positive or negative, small or large, integer or floating point. So these categories doesn't matter. Any kind of numbers are nothing but number data type. Second one, string, means collection of characters. Next, so here characters means alphabets, digits, and special characters too. And Boolean can be true or false. And any means any data type or object, we can say. To represent any object, any data type or object without class is represented as any data type. Here any data type means any value, any type of value. Any type of value. It doesn't matter whether it is a number or string or boolean. Any type of value or object without class is represented as mainly any data type. If you can notice, we have a object, we have an object, and I want to store this particular object in a variable. So where some variable name, for example, some sample is the name of the variable. Here sample is just a variable that stores reference of this particular object. Now using the sample, we are able to access the corresponding properties. See, if you type like sample.x, sample dot, it is showing the list sample.x and sample.y. It is reading the properties whatever already declared above. So we have x and y properties. We are just printing them independently. So compile and run this. So remember the process tsc first.ts node first.js. Now we can see the x value and y value printed independently. Because the variable sample contains the reference to the object, so through the variable we are able to access the properties independently. The data type for this particular variable is by default any. Any indicates any type of value or objects without classes. In case if you want to create a variable and you want to store the reference of the object that is created based on the class, then its data type will be the class name itself. What I meant to say in simple words, I want to create a variable, and in this variable I want to store the reference of the object. Right hand side we have created an object, right? That object reference I want to store in the variable called s. So for this s variable, the data type will be student. In case of objects without classes, any data type. In case of objects with data type with the class, we have to give the class name itself. And using that variable, we can access the individual properties. For example, s dot student ID, student name, each property we can print. We are just printing student ID, name, and marks is registered. So compile it. tsc first.ts. Then we have to go node first.js. Now we can see an object which includes the student ID, student name, marks, and is registered get result. Then we can also see the corresponding student ID independently, student name separately, marks separately. Okay, the is registered separately, and you can see the x and y value separately. Okay, right. Now, so we have demonstrated all the data types as we discussed. But in this program, the problem is, even if you create one more object in the same way, for example, I'm creating one more object with the help of new student. The second student object also contains the same data. Check it. Actually, new student, two new students are there. That means two student objects. both of the objects contain the same data. It's not correct. Okay, I would like to have different data. Both of these objects are having same data right now, but I would like to have a different data. So in order to create a different data, what we have to do, we have to pass the values from the place where are we creating objects. From these brackets, we have to pass the actual values whichever you want to store. It's not correct to assign the direct values from here. So the same values we are trying to pass here, these four values are going to be received by a special type of function called constructor. So let's learn what is constructor. What is constructor? Constructor is a special function or method of the class that executes automatically when we have created an object for the class. Whenever we have created an object, every time when we create a new object, automatically it will create a new object. It will automatically execute the constructor. We have created an object, the constructor executes. Again, we have created an object, again the constructor executes. Every time when we create a new object, the constructor newly will execute. We have created 100 times means 100 times the constructor executes. We have not created any object means the constructor will not execute at all. And for one object, only one time the constructor will execute. There is no possibility of re-executing it again. The constructor syntax is constructor, some code here, that's all. Constructor is mainly used to initialize the properties of the object when it is created. Initialization means storing some default values. The requirement is whenever we have created an object, automatically you want to initialize the properties. For example, we have created an object for the student class. Inside the student class object, you want to initialize the student details, student ID, student name, marks, and other details. To initialize the properties of the student object, we require a constructor in the student class. You can verify here, as we have created an object, by default the object is empty, it has nothing. I want to store some default values in the student ID, student name, marks, is registered properties, and I want to store all these objects inside all these properties inside the object. So to exactly initialize the properties, we have to use constructor. Means I'm just creating a constructor. In this constructor, we are going to receive all the values whichever we are passing here. Exactly, we are passing the four values. These four values are being received by this particular constructor. So student ID is number data type, student name is a string data type, marks is number data type, is registered is a boolean data type. We have received four parameters. So these parameters will go to the respective parameter variables. This argument 101 will go to student ID parameter, Scott will go to student name parameter, 80 will go to marks parameter, false will go to is registered parameter, respectively, one by one. And I want to initialize these values into the respective properties here. So this dot student ID is equal to student ID. In this statement, the student ID is representing the local variable student ID which is received here. This dot student ID is representing the current working object member. This means current working object. In the current working object, we have a property called student ID. This one. This property is accessed as this dot. Local variable is accessed as just directly without this. So same like this, we have remaining properties like student ID, student name, all these. So we have passed four values. Those four values are first received by the respective parameters and assigned the same into respective properties. And all these properties will be stored inside the object. That's what the process. But if you are creating a new object, again, we can pass different values, right? For example, 102, Allen, 70, and true. These details only will be given to constructor. Those only will be stored in the new object. So in the case of first object, these values are stored. The second object, these values are stored. So both are being printed here. So that's why if you can compile and run this right now, okay, now we are getting like this. That is, the first object contains the first details, second object contains second details. Okay, now we have understood how to create a class, how to create properties, how to create constructor, how to create methods, how to create object, how to initialize data, how to access the data, everything independently we have just understood. We have understood classes, we have understood objects without classes also, like this. Now next one, inheritance. It is a concept of creating a relationship between, what kind of relationship? Parent-child relationship between two or more classes. It is a concept of parent-child relationship between two or more classes. At least two classes will be there. First class will be the parent, second class will be the child. The parent class shares all of its members to the child class. So in the parent class, all the members including properties methods will be shared, will be given to the child class. That means we have declared some properties and methods in the parent class, means it's automatically means we are declaring the same properties, same methods in the corresponding child classes. So the child class can access all the members of the parent. Now and then, how to create inheritance, let's try to see. First we have to create a parent class. We have to create a parent class. So class name, class parent class. Inside the parent class, we can create the parent class members, parent class properties, parent class methods. Parent class properties, parent class methods. We can create any number of parent class properties, parent class methods. Create the child class, and here the important syntax is extends parent class. The extends keyword says that this is the child of the so-and-so parent. For example, class B extends A, which means that B is a child of A class. And in this child class, we can have child class properties and child class methods, obviously. But the point is, all these parent class properties and methods also will automatically become as the members of the child. No need of repeating them manually. Automatically, all the members of the parent will be given to child, will be the members of the child. That is the reason if you create object for the child class, it includes all the parent class members too. In the same object, both parent class members plus child class members will be stored at a time. So in the same object, as both are stored, both we can access. The inheritance syntax is extends. Let's notice that, for example, there is a student called engineering student. So engineering student is basically a student, but adds some additional properties. So extends the student class. We are going to create an object for the engineering student class, not for the student class. But here some problem occurs. Are you having any constructor in this particular class? No. So we have to create one. Because the reason, if the parent is having a constructor, compulsory we have to create a constructor in the child. If in the parent there is no constructor, no need of writing the constructor compulsory in the child. So as the parent itself is having a constructor, compulsory we have to create the child constructor, and from here we have to call the parent class constructor, because first when we create object, the execution flow comes to the child class constructor. Explicitly through this syntax, by using the keyword super, we can call the parent class constructor. First, these values should be received here. First we are receiving the values into this particular place, and then these values we are going to pass to the parent. Student ID value, student name value, all these values we are going to pass to the parent. So the super keyword will call the parent class constructor. If you don't have super keyword mentioned, you will get error. Compulsory we have to place the super keyword in order to call the parent class constructor. If you have any additional properties, we can initialize. For example, we have a property called practical marks. In the student, there is no any practical marks member notice. So we are receiving practical marks also. Assume we are passing some practical marks, suppose 45 and 50. So these values, that is practical marks, first will be received into this variable, and the same can be initialized into practical marks property. So in this child class, by default, all the members of the parent will be carried forwarded automatically. Plus, we can have some extra properties like practical marks. So all we have to initialize in the child class constructor. We have to pass the arguments to the parent class constructor by using super keyword. Plus remaining we have to initialize here itself. The super keyword is used to call the parent class constructor. If the parent class has a constructor, we have to call it compulsory in the child class constructor. To call the parent class constructor from child class, we have to use super keyword. So by writing super of some arguments we can pass, argument 1, argument 2, n number of arguments. So the super keyword is used to call the parent class constructor. Now we can see the example. So just let's compile and run this. Now we can see the practical marks also printed. But the point here is that we have created an object for the engineering student class, but it doesn't include student ID, student name marks, but it is printing here. It is storing in the memory, and say at the same time it is printing here. So how this student ID, student name marks are stored in this engineering student class object? The reason, as it extends the student, all the parent members become as the child members. Okay, fine. Next, access modifiers. No, access specifiers. So access specifiers or access modifiers specify where this particular member is accessible. Let's call it as access modifiers. So these will specify where the particular member is accessible. Here we have three: private, public, protected. Public is default here. If you don't specify anything, by default public. Private means the member is accessible within the same class only. Outside the class it's not accessible. Public means the member is accessible everywhere. No restriction. Public is default. That means if you don't declare anything, by default it is taken as public. Protected means the member is accessible within the same class and also in the corresponding child classes. So within the same class we can access the protected and also in the child classes, but not outside, but not in other classes. In non-child classes we cannot access them. So with the help of these members we can specify the protection layer for the particular variable not to be accessible. For example, I cannot access your Gmail. So it is in a secured way, just like that. So optionally we can add public for every variable and method, but no need actually, because it's by default. It's default. So with adding public keyword, without adding also, there is no any impact. But in case if you want others like private or anything, you have to specify explicitly. For example, if you just say private email, one more thing, this declaration, this initialization is not required, right? First, initially the default value will be undefined. As we know already, the default value always be undefined. So just this is not declared, not required. So just we have email property. So we can initialize here this dot email is equal to some sample at gmail.com. So we can initialize the properties like this. That means we can access anywhere within the same class. But since it's a private member, can we print it here? For example, I'm trying to print email, not allowed. It's showing error saying that email is a private, only accessible within the same class student, not even in the child class. So can we access here this dot email? Not accessible. But in case if it is protected, now we can access in the same class and also in the corresponding child class, but of course not outside. Still, it's not accessible in the here. So it's up to you whether you will mention parent or public, private, or protected. So private means within the same class only, protected means same and in the child class, public means accessible everywhere. Okay, this is all about the access modifiers.